Hey, what's up, super simps, and welcome back to another episode of SimplyPodLogical, a simply illogical podcast.
Menchie's on your back.
Menchie's on my back, and Cristine is looking very green. Are you ready for St. Patrick's Day, Cristine?
Happy St. Patrick's Day. I mean, Patrick, yes.
Yeah, this is coming out right before. Does anyone care about St. Patrick's Day?
I did when I was in university.
Yeah, it was just an excuse to drink, right?
Yeah. We wore green, put on green necklaces, and everyone made their beer green.
Green necklace, like you'd throw beads at
like
people?
Beads, yeah.
Was this like Mardi Gras? I just feel like, is there a small group of people out there who treat it as like a very serious religious holiday who just hate the fact that it's
probably
just an excuse
is it?
to
I
drink?
actually have no idea. Is it a Catholic holiday, St. Patrick's Day?
Well, it is St. Patrick, right?
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
But I
saint gave it away.
I actually have no idea what St. Patrick's Day is about other than drinking.
Neither do I. Just drinking. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
All right, today it's that time of the month, Cristine, where we get to be a little cranky,
It's that time of the month.
judgmental. I have some cramps. No, we're going to go on Reddit and judge people and answer the question, am I the asshole?
I was almost about to call you an asshole.
Am I an asshole for judging St. Patrick's Day? Yeah, we've pulled up, we've done this 2 times already. This is part 3. We really enjoy these.
So do you guys, apparently.
Yeah. So we just pull posts from the popular subreddit, Reddit, Am I the Asshole? And we give you our judgment of the situation. So you want to just hop right into it?
Let's get into it.
What do you think, Menchie? You ready?
She goes, all dogs are the assholes.
All right, first one. Am I the asshole for not grabbing something off a tall shelf for a short girl at the grocery store because I don't work there? I was doing my grocery shopping at Walmart, and if you've ever been there, you'll know the shelves are pretty high up. I'm 6'4", so it's not an issue for me.
Must be nice.
This short girl got my attention and asked me if I could grab something off the shelf for her. Honestly, I think if she just stood up on her tippy toes or jumped a few times and knocked it down with a stick or something, she could have done it herself. I just said, no thanks. She looked surprised and said, okay, and looked at the thing and then looked around. Some other guy in the aisle was looking at me with this like WTF look on his face and came over and got it for her. She thanked him and then walked like 3 feet to grab something else. The guy was like, dude, don't be a jerk. She obviously couldn't reach it. I said, not my problem. I don't work here. He was like, it costs nothing to be nice. I said, it costs $20 to get a stepladder. Maybe she should invest in that instead of bothering people who don't work here. She looked at me and then said, wow, okay. And the guy was like, holy shit, you're an asshole. I just left because whatever. I'm tired of being expected to do this just because I'm tall. Am I the asshole for not going out of my way to work for some girl at a grocery store when I don't work at the store?
It sounds like the poster wrote this post being fully aware that he was an asshole.
Really? They just seem totally oblivious to the fact that they're...
Well, it's like they're pretending to be oblivious because they're even reciting what the other people said. Dude, don't be a jerk. She obviously couldn't reach it. So they must have some insight into the validity of that statement.
No,
in order
they're
to repeat
saying
it.
Those people are being completely unreasonable in the suggestion.
I don't fully believe the story. That's what I'm saying. I'm skeptical.
You have more faith in people than I do. I think there are people out there who are literally this oblivious. Like, look, no one has an obligation to do someone a favor at the grocery store. But, like, this is a pretty, like...
Yeah.
She's not asking you to work for her. She's like, could you take 3 seconds to hand me that thing?
But he's acting like she singled him out because he is tall. But I think she just asked him because he was the next person closest to her, and she is short. Like, he's acting like, because I'm tall, you shouldn't ask me these questions. You're right. That's why.
There's an implication through the whole post that, like, by being tall, he is constantly being put in a position... where people expect things of him. Do tall people feel this way? Like they're going through life as like oppressed people because of their tallness?
Maybe he's hypersensitive to comments about his height. And so when someone's innocently just like, can you get that thing for me? They're like, you calling me tall? Why,
because I'm tall? Okay, for the guy is 6'4", by the way. It's not like tall? It's Yao Ming or anything.
I'm 5'4".
Yeah,
so
okay, he's a foot taller than you. There's your reference
I would ask
point.
him for help.
Yeah, so okay, so yes, this guy is a jerk. Just be nice to people, just hand them things. If you went
Yeah.
through life and like every time you went through the grocery store this happened, I could appreciate getting annoyed at a certain point, right?
Like, if it was an old lady asking him, would he have still said no? That's what I want to know.
Does
If
that
it
matter?
was a senior citizen being like, "Gentlemen, sir, can you please help me grab the can of beans?" And he said, "No, I don't work here." Like, you'd be a dick.
Wait, you think it matters how like
No, but
I-
it shouldn't. But I'm saying he's acting like some girl who's, it's her fault she's short, apparently. Like,
yeah.
he's
But
acting like
she's
she...
like young and spry enough to jump up and hit it with a
Exactly.
stick, right?
But would he have thought that about an 80-year-old?
Actually, it's funny you bring up the old person thing. We were once at a party for your grandmother, and it was at a golf club. And
Okay.
all these old people are showing up.
Was it her 90th birthday?
I think
Is it
so.
that
This was
one?
pretty recently, yeah. And this old lady drives up, and I just happen to be like just outside the front door as this lady pulls up. She gets out of her car, and she hands me her keys. And I'm like, what? Like I'm like, oh, hey, like I don't work here. And she goes, it's okay. Could you just park my car? And she just walks away.
It's okay. You're not an employee. Just take my car.
There's a brief moment in my mind where like, let's just go on a joyride. It was a pretty nice car. No, I'm kidding. I just parked the car. But like, if I was, I don't know, if I was a little bit more like this guy, I would have been like really upset about that, I guess.
Yeah.
It was a pretty weird situation. I thought it was funnier more than anything, but
That is pretty funny.
I don't work here.
I feel like if I was in her shoes, I would be using a stick to try and get the object down just because I don't want to ask for help or talk to people. I'd be there with the stick and then everything would fall.
Yeah. And then just some employee has to clean up the
Yeah,
mess
so
after
it'd be
you.
worse. So ask for help and help others is the moral of this story.
All right, next one. Am I the asshole for making a fake stock portfolio for my wife?
Is this you? Did you write this?
Who's my wife? I'm not married.
Yeah, good point.
My wife has always been terrible with finances. From the moment I met her, before we were married, she was swimming in debt, yet only made the minimum payment every time, while at the same time buying excessive products and items that she couldn't afford. She's wonderful in so many other ways, but as far as finances go, she is a lost cause. While we were dating, I tried to teach her some financial literacy. It didn't really stick, and once we were married, I took over our combined finances. Of course, I still keep her informed about everything that I do, but she tends to let me do most of it. Shortly after the market started picking up again following the COVID recession, I started picking up numerous stocks that were cheap, and I told her about it. When she then asked me if she could have half of our total investment funds to invest her on her own. I asked her why, and she wanted to prove to her friends that she could be responsible with money, since apparently they were teasing her about it last time they met. I told her it wasn't a good idea, and I could certainly help her out by setting up an account with a small amount or one of the numerous simulations out there so she could learn under my guidance instead of just jumping right into our money and potentially losing it all. She refused, and we had a big argument about it. She was still adamant, and I was getting annoyed, so I set her up a simulation and told her it was a real account. She hadn't even bothered to research real brokers and thought it was the real deal and started investing. Fast forward to now, and her account has done terribly over the last few months. She has lost a large portion of the money in the account, which she thinks is real. She put the money into random penny stocks and other garbage after reading half-baked articles online, probably hoping to find the next Apple. Of course, many of them did terribly, depleting her account. She even invested in GameStop, but only after it showed up on the news, and when it fell, she panicked and sold her shares. She came to me the other day sobbing and said sorry, upon which I asked her if she now realized why I didn't want her to just jump in without any knowledge. I then told her that she didn't have to worry because it was a simulation, and she got angry at me for lying to her instead of being happy that her retirement isn't flushed down the drain, and dragged us into a big argument. I failed to see how I am in the wrong because I offered multiple times to help her and ease her into our finances instead of just dropping her straight in and letting her do what she did to the simulation to our actual account. Am I the asshole?
Wow.
Ooh, this is a lot.
There's so many layers to this one.
I guess the tough thing is the whole premises of it is you are dating someone who is basically a child when it comes to money, right? So as much as this would seem unreasonable to me in in any sort of normal relationship, or like you and
In
I,
the average relationship.
if I had done this to you or you'd done this to me, that's like a terrible thing, you know? It's our joint finances.
To lie to someone, yeah.
To lie to them about
And
how they're managing their money.
mostly just acting like you're giving them, what is half their money, and you're not, because you're controlling them. Like that's
That would be an awful thing. But I have to empathize with the guy a little, that he knows she has no idea what she's doing. So I guess I would hope your partner, who doesn't know what they're doing, would recognize that and would agree that it's not the best idea to just start, investing half of your collective retirement fund without any idea what they are doing.
I guess I'm just so risk averse, but thinking of her actions and how she just did them makes me so queasy. Like I can't even imagine a world where I truly and I have insight into the fact that I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm just throwing our savings into it, not knowing the outcome. Like I would be way too scared. I don't even gamble on slot machines with $5. Like hell no, I can't do it.
You know what I don't think we should ignore though? Like what if by some random chance her simulated account was like way up and did amazing.
Hey,
and all of a sudden she like thought she had made them, $1 million.
Then she should get mad at him. Because in this case, hey, I can understand why you're mad that your partner lied. Yes. Mm-hmm. But if we just look at this like objectively for a second and remove the emotional lying, if I were her, I would be happy and relieved. Thank God I didn't just lose our savings and then get mad at him later for, the lying. But at the end of the day, no one lost any money. Right?
Yeah, there must be some relief mixed in with the being upset thing. But it just sounds like not a healthy relationship where he's basically having to treat her like a kid when it comes to their finances, right? Like tricking them into a fake.
Why does it hey, it's okay if you don't know how to invest or whatever. Not everyone knows. Honestly, I'm not that good at it, which is a huge part of why I leaned on Ben when we first started, having money, and I wanted to know how to invest it. And then I eventually got a financial advisor to help because I know that I am not an expert and I did not have time to become one. So what is important here is maybe acknowledging or having some insight into what you are capable of and what you are not, and it's okay to ask for help. So maybe she didn't want to ask her partner for help, who appears to have more knowledge in this.
Yeah, and I understand the sensitivity too about more traditionally women not wanting to feel reliant on the man in the relationship to be the one who handles the money, right?
But they can both have access and insight into the accounts and what's going on. But if he has the knowledge and what stocks to pick, I don't see what the issue is, why she feels like...
Yeah, but I think he's her friends are teasing her. Maybe it's her insecurity about that played into why she wanted to do it, but it's still an incredibly irresponsible thing to do, right? I do know someone in real life where the guy, I'll be vague, the guy does the finances and his wife doesn't have control of it, but she'll say what she would have done with the money, and then she'll remind him that if he had done that, it would have done really well. So she gets to complain about the fact that, when she guessed right, she gets to complain about the fact that he didn't do that, but she doesn't accept any of the risk of just managing it herself.
Because if she did it wrong, then the fault would fall on her.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, interesting. So, yeah, maybe there's another element of the relationship and control there that we're also not seeing her side.
This is true. Yeah, maybe he treats her like a child. These simulations are super useful, though, by the way, in terms of if you're trying to get into investing, something didn't come up when Matt and I were talking about this. You can create a fake account to just sort of play around with what you could do. And it's a really good, sort of first dipping your toe in the water of actually trying to figure out what makes sense.
How do you make a fake account? How do you make a fake bank account? I understand it's not a bank account, but is it through the bank under which you are investing in TFSAs?
So I'm not sure if, I'm sure there are third-party services that do that too, but the main bank I used when I was a young man also had a tool that lets you do it on a simulated basis.
So maybe it's more widely available tool, because that's really practical. That's an awesome tool.
It makes a lot of sense,
kind
but then if you do well, you're also like, wow, I wish I'd done
Damn it,
this
I
with
wish
real
this were-
money.
But you know what? You got to practice before you go on the competition, before you go to the Olympics. You got to practice.
Yeah, if it makes sense for you to be doing this at all.
Right. Sure.
All right, next one. Am I the asshole for screaming at my roommate for accidentally poisoning me? My roommate is D. He's 31. He's a dude. I'm 25. They. D and I are best friends, and we have been for several years. Recently, we moved in together, and we are just now hitting the 1-year mark on being roommates. You might think I'm implying something. I'm not. We're just friends. Anyway, he's an amazing roommate, very organized and neat, respectful of my privacy and possessions. Plus, he's my friend, so... Menchie. Plus, he's my friend, so it's like hanging out 24/7. I'm a bit messier, but I always manage to clean up the havoc I wreak upon our flat. This morning, I was getting ready and spilled some foundation on my shower curtain. We have separate bathrooms and bedrooms. I left to clean after work as I was rushed. I left to clean it after work. Apparently, while I was gone, D, who had the day off work, went into my bathroom for some reason, noticed the foundation, and decided to clean it. Here's the thing, though. He scrubbed the foundation out of my shower curtain using a cleaning product with my toothbrush. When he was done, he left it unrinsed on my sink for me to find. I get home from work. We get takeout, watch a movie. When the movie's over, I went to shower and brush my teeth, and I noticed that it tasted off, and it was foaming blue instead of white like my toothpaste does.
Oh.
So I went to the living room where D was reading a book. I asked him if he had done anything to my toothbrush, which he replied, yeah, he cleaned the foundation off with it. I thanked him, but asked what he used, and he replied, OxyClean, and then he realized what he did. Naturally, I was pissed and started screaming that he could have made me sick. There was a large amount on the brush and that he shouldn't have used my toothbrush for anything without my permission. Put cleaning products on my toothbrush or not rinse my toothbrush after putting cleaning products on it. He replied that he was just trying to help and said I was ungrateful since it worked. We got into an entire screaming match. Here's the worst part. After this I ended up vomiting, maybe from stress, maybe from the fact I ingested OxyClean. After I told D I wasn't feeling well, I was physically ill, he said I was overreacting and trying to make him feel bad, and I ended up going to bed. Am I the asshole?
Who would ever take an active toothbrush, like one that is being used and put back, whether it's yours or someone else's, put cleaning products on it?
The most bizarre thing about this description is that they don't seem to have an issue with the toothbrush being used at all if he had just rinsed it. Like, who are these people who are interchanging the toothbrush they use to scrub toilets and their mouth?
Please don't do that.
Don't do that. We have like an extra toothbrush I've used to clean.
Was it mine?
Things. Yeah, I'm telling you right now.
Like, you probably don't want remnants, even if you rinse it out, of OxyClean in your mouth.
Not. Yeah, this is insane. And just making maybe it's just in our head. Like, if you think you may have been poisoned, maybe just the thought of that is making you sick. Like, I don't know.
If you're going to use a toothbrush to clean something, make sure it's an old toothbrush and that you put it in a place where you know this is the cleaning toothbrush. Don't put it back on the sink like as if you're going to go brush your teeth the next morning. Oh my God.
This is super bizarre. I never had roommates, really. So I don't have any horror stories about roommates like stealing food or toothbrushes or anything like that. Do you? Is this like normal? This is what it's like to have roommates?
No. I don't know. We never stole each other's toothbrushes, but people did used to mess with each other.
Really?
They'd take saran. When I lived in residence, like on campus, they took saran wrap and put it on the toilets. Like the guys would do that. And then they'd also did it to the door frame. So when you open your door to like go to the kitchenette in the morning, you walk right into saran wrap.
That's like university, like residence pranks though,
yeah,
right?
I guess it's residence
I think it's
pranks.
Different when you're like living off campus with people.
Well, when I lived off campus with 5 guys, it sounds like a burger store, but we all used to buy our own groceries. Sometimes we'd share if we're buying like a meal, but as a result of people continuing to like eat my bread or use my milk.
Oh, they were taking your food.
Yeah, so I started writing my name in Sharpie on things. So like the milk would just say like CR or something, or the yogurt would say CR.
Did that work?
Kind of.
Not really, though.
Not really. Like, my milk would be like empty, and I'd be like, guys,
I need that for my tea.
it's true.
There's got to be a way of, like, you hear stories about people like bringing food to work, like a jug of milk, and then everyone else is using it.
Yeah.
Well, how do you deal with that? Do you just like bring a decoy milk, like fill it full of like, I don't know, like you mix a bunch of like spice into the milk or something, you like ruin it?
I've never done that, but I definitely write my name on everything, because I do that when we used to go to the office. I would write CR or my initials on the milk, just to be like, this is mine.
You can't trust it though. People just take.
Well, you hope that people don't do that.
I mean, you hope we live in a society, but that doesn't stop people.
I remember, though, like during that era of my life, I got so used to writing my name on stuff that I started writing my name on like my scissors, like my random books.
Cristine thinks it's like a magic solution. It's like casting a spell on the scissors that no one can take it if
I
your
literally
name's
have
on
like
it.
clothes. This is from camp. When I used to go to camp,
Yeah.
I don't know how many people would understand this, but when you sent your kid to camp, they would then have to, like, clothes have to get washed somehow. But the only way for your clothes to get washed was to be outsourced to some like third party company. So you'd put your clothes in a laundry bag, and then they would try to keep the laundry bag separate to know which clothes are which campers, right? There's thousands of people at an overnight camp.
Yeah.
How do you know who to return it to? So we had like a number on our bag. But in addition to that, sometimes clothes get lost or misplaced.
Sure.
So people would sew labels in their clothes, like every sock, every piece of underwear that said their full name. So for years of my life, I had underwear and socks that had a label that said Cristine Rosenberg stitched into it. And I remember, like, you know, and I wear those clothes all year, not just at camp.
Yeah.
So then a few years later, I'm still wearing those socks, and I'm at school, in high school, and someone's like, why do you have your name stitched into your socks?
So you don't forget your name, right?
And I think ever since growing up at an overnight camp like that, it's just instilled in me, just write your name on everything that's yours.
Wow, that's weird. Yeah, sometimes I'll just open the fridge and there's CR on our milk.
No, there's not.
I'm kidding.
Ben's making fun of me.
That's funny. A little
I forgot
peek
about
into Christine's psychology there. All right, next one. Am I the asshole for assuming which name belonged to the human and which name belonged to the dog? My mom lives in a 55-plus community. I lived with her for about 5 months last year, so I got to know a lot of the neighbors well. It's a new community, so a bunch of people have moved in since I lived there. I moved out of state, and I was visiting my mom for a long weekend this past week. While walking my dog, I saw a woman and her dog a few times and was friendly to her, making small talk. One day I ran into a neighbor I knew, and she pointed to a house and asked if I had met Dorothy and Squeaks yet. I said, I think I had, but I hadn't officially introduced myself. Later that day, I saw the woman and her dog, and I introduced myself and said, "Hi, you're Dorothy, right?" And the lady made a really offended face and said, "Dorothy is my dog. My name is Squeaks." She walked off, and the rest of the time I was at my mom's that I saw, she gave me dirty looks every time I passed. Am I the asshole?
Okay, if I was Squeaks, I wouldn't be that surprised if someone accidentally made that mistake.
Yes. If it was the other way around and you assumed the woman was named Squeaks, or
That
like
would be weird.
Yeah, I think you made the right call in guessing.
It's an innocent assumption, and I guess that's what matters here is the intent.
There's
like,
really nothing to be offended about, right?
It's like if I'm offended if people write my name with an H. Reasonably, you expect that the name Cristine is spelt with an H, just because that's what it normally is, right?
Yeah, but it would be unreasonable of you to get mad at them.
Right. I don't
for making
actually
that
get
mistake.
mad at the bank teller if they're like spelling out my name. I just have to, politely correct them. Actually, my name doesn't have an H.
Yeah, but
That's
if
it.
okay, so if it was the opposite though, and she went up to the lady and said, "I assume your name is Squeaks," that to me has the greater risk of being offensive. If you assume
but she would
it's
have
the
been
dog.
right.
I know, but like you can't go through life
And this
taking
is
those
Dorothy.
chances. But like
Her
when
dog.
it's so obvious, like this is Rebecca and did you meet Rebecca and Mr. Biscuits or Benji? You would assume, like some things
Benji.
are much more likely to be the dog's name, right?
Right. Yeah.
Please never call me Benji, by the way, because that is the dog's name, right? If you call me Benji, I would get very
That's not a
offended.
dog. I knew someone at camp whose
Wasn't
name
there a
was Benji.
show like Benji the dog?
Maybe.
I think that
When I think of Benji, I think of like a little boy.
a little boy with short hair or long hair.
I don't know, Ben.
You are not the asshole.
You're not an asshole.
And it sounds like Squeaks is a little overly sensitive. I would love to know, how do you end up with a nickname like Squeaks?
Yeah, it's
There's
probably
there's a
something really
story
obvious.
there, eh?
She probably squeaks.
Good
Just a
one.
wild guess. And Dorothy wants to go home.
There are some like
That's a
old
dog.
people names and nicknames that you just never hear anymore, right? Like maybe just, are there a bunch of 80-year-olds who like Squeaks is just like a common term of like endearment for old people?
Older people have very different names
They
than
do,
the current
right?
generation. I'm just thinking of the names of my grandparents. And
It's also
they're-
cyclical too,
Yeah.
right? There's research on this where often people will name their kids after what they think rich people are naming their kids of the generation before them. You at least see like some interesting patterns like that in certain communities, let's say.
like Prince William.
Or like, I think that's why Alicia, spelled a bunch of different ways, became really popular in like the 90s or something. I'm not sure if that's a correct example, but there are clear examples of like, the perception of like rich kids are named this sort of bleeds down to less affluent communities naming their kids after that, I think.
No one's going to name Christine with no H.
Well, there's definitely patterns to these things. These days, I think we're seeing much stranger names, and I wonder, like Apple and
That was like 12 years ago.
what did Elon Musk name his kid?
Oh, yeah.
Like you can't
That's
read
a much
it,
better example.
but you pronounce it
like
as like
AXE12. I don't know.
I think the pronunciation of it is something not super
Tesla.
bizarre. It's Tesla. I just named his
Tesla
kid
stocks.
Tesla. It's some tax avoidance scheme.
It's a section of the tax code.
I'm just gonna
subsection.
call every old person I see from now on Squeaks, though.
No, Ben, you're not.
That old lady who handed me the keys. No thanks, Squeaks. I don't work here.
No.
Right, next one. Am I the asshole for not letting a woman have the seat next to me on the plane? I recently had to fly across country in the U.S. to deal with a certain company matter. My company apologized profusely to me because I am terrified of flying, but seeing as it would have been a 24-hour drive, I obliged. Okay, weird way of framing it in the beginning. For the trip, my company paid for my seat, but I decided to also reserve the seat next to mine. Again, this is an anxiety issue. I would have fit just fine into my seat, but if I needed to vomit or I started getting panicky, at the very least I wanted to have a buffer between myself and the next person. I had an aisle seat in a 3-person row, and people were shuffling around changing their seats before takeoff. I don't know how this works, but apparently people occasionally just sit down wherever they want, and the flight attendants don't have to deal with it. The seating arrangement was me, open seat, the one I had purchased, and then a teenaged girl who was maybe in the 7th grade. Right before we started taxiing, a middle-aged woman abruptly sat down in the middle seat and fist-bumped the teenage girl. Immediately, I told her that I had reserved that seat, and she started by being very considerate. She quietly told me she was getting away from a bad situation and really wanted to sit next to her daughter. During this explanation, she repeatedly pointed out her daughter sitting next to her as if I would be a monster for depriving her of that seat. I stuck to my guns, though, and told her that I would get the cabin attendant if she didn't go back to her seat, several rows back in the middle. She called me on my bluff, so I had to flag down a flight attendant. He asked if I really needed the middle seat, and I said yes. He then politely asked the woman to move, which she did, but not before calling me a dickhead. Since she did this rather loudly, several people were clearly looking at me, and I couldn't really read what they were thinking. I kind of feel bad about it now, and after arriving safely, I wonder if I should have given up the seat. What do you think, Christine?
Ooh.
I feel like a lot of people have very strong opinions about airplane seating etiquette here.
Yeah, I waver back and forth because I kind of see all sides. And then you say something else that gives me more insight into, oh, okay, well.
I mean, ultimately, the rational position is if that woman wanted to sit with her daughter, then you should have booked 2 seats together. And I know it's really shitty now that most airlines basically make you pay for picking seats like that. I feel
And
like
they
that hasn't
overbook.
always, and they overbook and all sorts of, air travel sucks in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I get it, right? But I totally empathize with this guy just being like, you know, he's entitled to buy an empty seat. This is a thing people do. Eh? We looked into this once because a lot of the flights we were doing within Canada aren't they're not planes big enough to have a business class or anything. So everyone's sitting in coach. But you can basically, some airlines have like premium economy, which basically just means you get a row of 3 to yourself and they just block off the middle seat.
Right. Yeah.
So for you and I, we don't need like fucking pods to lie down in for flights. We just like the idea of having our own row and no one between us.
For anxiety kind of reasons.
Also that
honestly,
too, right?
'cause
Yeah. It's nice. You know, flying's a business expense for us usually too. So like a lot of airlines just offer that premium economy. So we would just do that, which is essentially just 3 seats in a row with the middle one blocked off. So to me, I don't see any issue with someone just sort of doing that back in the coach or cabin section if they want to block off a seat.
The rational part of me also agrees with that because he purchased a seat, it should be his. However, people do this all the time in airlines and get kicked out and moved around because of things beyond their control because airlines are dickheads sometimes. I do think I would never put myself in the position of trying to impose myself on something that someone else had purchased or did. So I can't see myself ever being in the position of the woman who came over. Like I would just never do that. Even if I wanted to sit beside my daughter so badly, I wouldn't do that. However, the poster did say something about how she was trying to get out of a bad situation. What does that mean? I don't know. Was there a danger of her sitting somewhere else in the plane where she was previously? Maybe. And if that's actually the case, then I would give up, the seat I purchased for that reason.
I don't know what that could possibly mean in this scenario. And it's maybe I have a cynical view of people, but like I think people are willing to just say things to make people uncomfortable to try to get their way, right? Like maybe this woman does this all the time.
They did fist pump. So I don't know what
how
that is.
dangerous can the situation be? But you know what I mean? Some people are very used to asking for favors. And most people, like their inclination is to just want to be nice and accommodating.
And say yes.
Like if someone came up to me and was like, oh, can I have that seat in the middle? I would immediately feel anxiety. Even if I really didn't want them there. It takes something to say no to that, right? Because you want to avoid, mostly want to avoid conflict.
Yeah, I hate airplanes, but I know I'm very anxious on airplanes, and I hate the idea of sitting like smacked up beside a stranger. It just gives me terrible anxiety. Smacked up beside Ben, I can do that.
Well, we once got remember when we
got separated? Yeah, like
there was a canceled flight or something, and we got like the last 2 seats on a different flight, but they were separated, and you had a lot of anxiety about that. It was
awful, especially when other people trying to talk to you.
The worst.
I'm just like, I'm a silent traveler. I can't talk to anyone else unless it's like Ben. I don't want to make small talk conversation.
Is it something about flying though?
I wouldn't really say that I have a fear of heights or a fear of flying, but being in such a small space with so many people, like sweating, you can smell it, you can hear it, like them chewing. All of that, I think, makes me anxious. It's not just the flying like on its own. So that's why we usually try and book seats where it's just Ben and I in a row, because then I don't have the added anxiety of someone like literally right beside me. Yeah. But growing up my whole life, I flew, to visit my grandmother in Florida. My family would go down once a year, and we would sit with random strangers. And that was, so I've done that many times. I don't want to sound like I'm so like, I can't sit with other people. But now that I have the choice and the luxury of, paying for more seats, basically, I would rather not sit with other people.
When was the last time we were on a plane even?
Yeah, I know. It's been a while.
It feels so foreign.
Which I don't mind. I don't mind not having to fly anywhere.
Oh, I don't want to drive for 25 hours.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to do that either.
All right, next one. Am I the asshole for waking my girlfriend up with my morning routine? So I'm a 21-year-old guy. My girlfriend's 20 years old. We have dated over 2 years and lived together over the last year. My girlfriend and I both work full-time. She works from home right now, and I work outside of the house. She works 8 to 5, and I work from 5:30 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon. The past few months, we've had morning arguments because she says my routine wakes her up. I get up significantly earlier than her, about 3 hours before she wakes up, and she's not a morning person. So here's the issue. My dad works at the same place as me, so usually he'll text me in the morning to make sure I'm awake, and he'll keep texting me until I answer or eventually call. I keep my phone's volume all the way up so I can hear it. A lot of the times I don't answer within the first time, and by the second text, my girlfriend wakes up. Then there are my alarms. I snooze them a lot because I set them early, so when I wake up, I know I have some time to sleep still. These usually wake her up too. It's just part of my routine. She's a very light sleeper and has trouble going back to sleep once she's up. She gets so angry with me when this happens because she says she's exhausted. She's in college too, so she's up late doing homework, usually despite having to get up and work the next day as well. We've tried a few solutions like her wearing headphones or an alarm clock that turns the light on, and it still doesn't help either of us. She thinks I'm an asshole because I won't get up when my alarm goes off or my dad texts me. She says that would solve all our issues and that I'm an asshole for not doing the simple solution so she can get a bit of sleep. I say she needs to learn to live with my routine. Am I the asshole here? People who set alarms to constantly go off and just snooze them over and over again, those people need help.
I kind of do
You
that.
do no.
A little
you
bit.
don't do that.
Like twice.
Actually, you know what fixed it for us was getting one of those fancy alarm clocks that turns on a light, right? I feel like
Yes.
that helped us a lot.
Yeah,
So,
I recommend those.
so Cristine wakes up earlier than me, but not like hours earlier.
Like
than
2
me.
hours.
Really? When do you wake up most days?
My alarm is set for 6:45, but I
Why?
normally don't get out of bed until
Why
it's like 7:20, 7:15. But I end up pressing my alarm twice. But the alarm clock is one where the light slowly, very slowly starts to turn on. So you kind of,
It simulates a sunrise
yeah,
is the point.
you subconsciously kind of wake up anyways before the music starts very quietly playing. So when the music slowly fades in, I will hit snooze, but I don't think it's like as alarming, as like the phone ringing that would wake you up, right?
No.
So it is a really good way to wake up. So there's a practical recommendation for this couple.
They suggested they tried an alarm clock that turns on the light, but maybe they didn't try very hard because I feel like that could be a solution for a
Yeah.
lot of people. But I think this guy is being a jerk to just expect her to deal with the fact that he's waking her up 3 hours earlier than she
How
needs to
long
get up
does he
every day.
spend hitting snooze? Do you say?
I don't think that's entirely clear, but to have your phone all the way up and get multiple calls
Yeah.
and multiple alarms, okay, I get it. It's if you have like 2 alarms, maybe that's reasonable. But I think the sort of magnitude of how many alarms and calls he's dealing with is the issue here.
Do I bother you in the morning?
No, I usually get woken up by the cats
By
here.
Menchie.
Menchie will often just like go on the bedside table and just like knock something off. And she's like, "Are you gonna feed me now?" And that's often
No,
how
but she
we
does
wake
that
up.
at 6 in the morning for me,
Yeah, I know.
and then I feed her.
No, it usually wakes. I'm good at like falling right back asleep though
Yeah.
in the morning. I have a lot of trouble falling asleep when we go to bed, but once it's the middle of the night or in the morning, I think I can fall right back asleep if I wake up.
So I don't wake you up with my.
Sometimes I'll
working
look
out in the
over,
basement.
I'll see you roll out of bed, I'll listen to you pee in the bathroom, and then I'll
Excuse
just go
me.
back to bed.
I'm closing the door from now on. Ben.
Anyway, yeah, this guy's being a jerk, right? But there has to be a solution. Or you know what? Like,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world if you have completely different sleep schedules to not sleep in the same bed as your partner.
That's another worst case scenario. If they really,
Yeah.
someone really needs a good sleep because they have an exam or something really important, an important meeting in the morning, why not do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, am I the asshole for not going home? For going home because my girlfriend wanted me to eat leftovers. I'm 25-year-old guy, my 26-year-old girlfriend. We have separate places, but she always wants me to come and stay with her. I do most times, even though my place is actually closer to where my job is. When I was getting off work, she called me and asked me to come over, and I asked her what she had cooked. She said she hadn't made anything and she was too tired to cook, but she had some leftovers. So I said, "Never mind, don't worry about it. I'ma just head home." And she got mad and said, "Oh, so you'll only come over because I cook for you? You don't want to spend time with me?" And I said, "I do, but I'm hungry and my place is closer. I don't want to waste gas and money driving all the way over just to eat leftovers." Am I right? if I'm going to eat leftovers, I might as well just do it at my place. And I did. But then she kept sending me screenshots of her group chat bashing me. Her friends, those are her friends, so I'm not taking them seriously, but I want to hear your guys, what you guys think objectively.
Why would I see you if you're just going to feed me leftover food? Has nothing to do with seeing you and hanging out.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, yeah, the only
Yeah.
purpose of going is eating. I mean, if you look at your girlfriend that way, that's a that's a wake up
It
call
sounds
for
like
her,
someone
right?
who goes through life thinking of things very practically. Like, food, is it good or bad? Okay, well, I'm going to go this direction. Like, they don't think about it on a deeper level.
Do you remember when we were first dating? One of the first times I came over to your place, we hung out, spent a bunch of time together.
And I had leftovers.
No, and you were like, "Do you want to stay for dinner?" And you had like just like pasta and like a jar of like canned tomato sauce.
Yes.
And I remember I looked at it, and I'm like, "No, I'd rather eat something else," and I left.
Did you leave? I thought you ate it. No, I swear you stayed and then it was bad.
I think I went home, but I'd already spent the time with you. I just made the decision that like I didn't want to like eat that.
my garbage before I yeah.
I was like, I think I could do better than that. Did that offend you at the time?
I remember
you brought it up long after the
you
fact.
made fun of the fact that my idea of making dinner for you was like boiling noodles and throwing jar pasta sauce on it.
Well, there's just like no nutrition. There's no protein.
This was before I understood those things, and I just didn't understand, and I lived in a small condo and didn't feel like it was a space to learn how to cook.
Sure. If really, I should have just offered to make you dinner.
Yeah, honestly.
That would have been the nice thing
exactly
to
right
do.
here. Come on, poster.
Yeah.
Why didn't he offer to make or get takeout?
I don't know. It kind of sounds like he might be an asshole. That
I
might be
think
why.
he's an asshole.
I think so too.
I think she can do better, and I want to see what the group chat
I mean,
said.
she might be a terrible person
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
I don't know. Sometimes those people just find each other.
Okay, maybe they're meant to be eating leftovers together in separate spaces.
All right, next one. Am I the asshole for refusing to go to a party that was planned for me? I'm a 28-year-old woman. Like most women, I have spent years fantasizing about my wedding day. So when my fiancé asked me to marry him last year, I was over the moon. I spent hundreds of hours planning and arranging our perfect day. Unlike a lot of people, we didn't have help with our financial situation when it came to our wedding either, but we spent roughly $16,000 for the wedding, which was only $8,000 in a honeymoon booking. I spent hundreds of hours of overtime to save for this. Little did I know that my fiancé and his best man had arranged a prank. That's a good sign.
For a YouTube video?
When it came down to anyone objecting to the wedding, his best man stood up and said he objected. Anyone who knows anything about weddings knows that regardless if it was a joke or not, the wedding cannot go forward if objected to.
It can't?
Is that true?
In what court of law?
Well, maybe in
what?
some churches.
Is it a real court of law?
Maybe that's a thing and I just don't know. Like,
Well, you can object and then the response and then proceed, right?
well, I don't know.
Just
Are
because
you
you
just
object,
saying that?
if you object to something in a courtroom, it doesn't mean the court is canceled.
But this isn't a courtroom, right? It's a
Well,
church,
yeah,
presumably.
that's also a point.
So maybe the priest is like, oh, someone objects. Fuck this,
Cancel.
I'm out.
Cancel the wedding.
Does that happen?
I have no idea.
Anyway, let's continue. So, despite the best man and my fiance saying that it was a prank, we could not get married as intended. I was devastated, mixed with an incredibly hefty side of complete fucking livid and a complete loss of respect for both my fiance and his friend. And all the money for catering and the venue was now out the window and non-refundable. My perfect date turned into a complete and total shit show. And now, to be honest, I don't even want to get married.
Ooh.
So anyways, my soon-to-be sister-in-law had arranged an after-party at her place for us. Instead of me going, I walked down the aisle to the door by myself and took the fuck off from complete embarrassment and disappointment. My entire family lives out of state and had planned months in advance for this day just to see nothing. After I left, my phone was flooded with calls telling me I'm overreacting and to just go to the party. People saying I could just go to the town hall and get a marriage certificate real quick, which would cost more money. They wouldn't leave me alone, and I finally snapped and told everyone to basically go fuck themselves and that I was not in any way obligated to put my hurt feelings aside to save face with them. Am I the asshole for not going to the party?
I think the real asshole is whoever said the wedding cannot proceed. Like,
maybe this is just some custom we're not aware of.
Yeah, I apologize if I'm just
This
so
can't be the
ignorant.
first time
This
someone
can't be a thing.
jokingly objected to
Right.
a wedding. Although, like, please do not do that.
Don't do that, yeah.
Unless you are 100% certain that both the bride and groom and everyone involved would actually
Laugh
think
at
that
it.
is funny.
Yeah.
That is just not something you take a
Yeah,
chance
I would
on,
never
right?
do that. But I also, like, given that they had planned it, or some of the parties have planned it, obviously she didn't. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I do not understand how just, like, saying that and being like, just kidding, cancels your entire wedding and the venue is canceled. Like, what?
Well, here's the thing, though. Like, I think the point maybe they were trying to make to her is like, oh, this sucks that, like, the formal legal wedding part won't happen right now. But couldn't you just carry on the rest of the, reception and party and the catering and just sort of still let that day be the celebration, even if you know you have to go to the courthouse the next day to get married?
I don't want to invalidate her upset, because
Sure.
if I were in her shoes choosing, what she wants to do there, I'd be upset because you guys, like, ruined the plans. Like, and I'm a planner. You ruined the plans. Things are not unfolding as planned. But if the point of the wedding was, like, booking the venue, people are from out of town, all these things are happening. The point is, like, to get people together.
Yeah.
To, have the first dance and blah, blah. You can still do all of those things. Maybe it's just not as traditional because it wasn't followed by some court-bound
Like the wedding
ceremony.
didn't actually.
But, like, it's still a wedding, just not the actual...
It depends what you look at a wedding as.
Yeah.
Do you look at it as a chance to celebrate your relationship surrounded by friends and family and loved ones? Or do you see it as this very formal process that has to happen?
I'm assuming a lot of people feel the latter. Like, they see it in a very traditional sense. But I'm just so perplexed that because someone made that joke and then presumably recanted it and was like, I'm just kidding, you may proceed.
Just kidding.
That some higher authority said, we are not continuing the wedding. Like, why? Why did that happen?
Maybe that's the thing. We just don't know. Comment down below if you've ever been at a
us.
wedding where someone objected and it didn't go on.
I'm not educated.
Because then
in
couldn't
weddings.
people just sabotage other people's weddings? Like, if I'm just some
Exactly.
jerk, I show up at random people's weddings
And just say, "Nope."
just yell out
And then-
objections and leave.
And go and grab a bottle of wine and run out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Wedding Crashers.
That's
the
a really
sequel.
good point. If that actually happened, how do you control random people who have nothing to do with your relationship or family just doing that?
Yeah. I guess you hope you don't invite those people.
Yeah, but people crash weddings, or someone invites their partner's friend or something as a +1. You don't know them.
Yeah. So, like,
This is a risky
distant.
game. This wedding thing.
Apparently. Yeah, anyway, the situation sucks. I agree with you. You shouldn't invalidate her feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fact that the fiance and the friend did this is just so stupid. But
Yeah.
I would like to think, if you actually still want to marry that person, you at least try to salvage what you can of that day and that celebration is how I would look at it.
If I were her, and I would be very upset because you ruined the plan, I think I would look back, like, laughing, like, about how ridiculous all of that was. Like, it's kind of funny in retrospect.
All right, and last one. Am I the asshole for applying to The Bachelor? So the other day, I had nothing really to do, and I ended up pulling up the application to be the next Bachelor.
That's what I do when I'm bored. What?
It was pretty easy to fill out, and I've always thought it would be a great fit for a multitude of reasons, so I ended up submitting my application. I thought nothing of it. It was like signing up to win a car at the mall. My girlfriend, however, thinks differently.
What?
She heard me banging away on my keyboard as I was filling out the why do you want to be on the show portion of the form, and I was so lost in thought I didn't even notice her looking over my shoulder. She thought it was a joke at first, but then she saw I'd used the word love, and shit hit the fan. I tried to explain to her that I was just screwing around, that I was just trying to write what I knew the producers would want to hear, and that I wasn't actually looking for love, but she wasn't buying it. I told her I don't actually have any intention of being on The Bachelor, and she's all like, well, if they called you up and cast you, would you go? And I admitted it would be hard to turn down. But she's one to talk with the way she and her friends drool over that douche Matt James every Monday night. And that's tame compared to how they act during The Bachelorette when there are multiple men to gawk at. But she never hears a peep out of me. I've literally applied to be on The Amazing Race, Survivor, and a million other reality shows, so I don't see how being on The Bachelor would be any different. I mean, none of those are about finding a romantic relationship.
It's all the same, Ben.
Yes, it involves beautiful women, and yes, I'd have to be single for at least the duration of the show, but I love my girlfriend, and if she ever had an opportunity to be on The Bachelorette, I would push her to do it because that way she'd have a life far better than the one I could ever give her. And she deserves the best life possible. It's hurtful she wouldn't do the same for me, even though it destroys me inside. She doesn't see it that way. And when I told her that it was a dumb argument because this is all just hypothetical anyway, she got up and left the house. Am I actually at fault here? I was just messing around, same as buying a lottery ticket, taking a 1 in a million chance at a better future, and she's pissed off about it. It wasn't an indictment on her or our relationship. Was it wrong for me to fill out the application in the first place, or is she overreacting? This is amazing. Like I don't know if this is real or not, but I love it.
It doesn't sound real.
Can you just apply to be... I understand there's an application to be a contestant. Mm-hmm. Like for The Bachelor, you can apply to be one of the women trying to marry the Bachelor. Mm-hmm. But you can also apply to be the one person who is the center of everyone's attention?
Is that what he was saying?
Well, yeah, he said he's applying to be the Bachelor so he could get all these women.
He's not going to get it. Because I don't think that's how it works at this point. So many seasons in, I think they kind of know who.
Do they just recycle the people? They just pick like someone who didn't win.
Like they have people of certain interests, whether they were on previous seasons or have some kind of spotlight on them. Like I think that's how it works. It's like an inside job.
Do you watch the Bachelor? Bachelorette?
Not really. I mean, I'm very aware of it, and I used to watch.
So we watched one season. And I was actually fascinated by it because it was the season with this soccer player. Juan Pablo. So he was the Bachelor. Well, it was amazing because he was clearly not like a catch. He wasn't someone you would want to date.
He was very rude.
He was rude and like...
womanizing.
Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. But there were obvious red flags that like he's not someone you'd want to be with. But in the narrow scope of the show... all these women are dropped into this location and thought like it is a competition to win this guy.
We must compete for Juan Pablo.
Yeah, like it turns it into a game and it gamifies it and they just assume this is what the prize they should want.
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating to watch a few of the women sort of realize like, oh wait, like I don't actually want to be with this guy.
But they only realized when it was like the final two.
Yeah, so like right towards the end, I think at least one of them was like, "I'm out of here, dude. Yeah. Like I don't want to be with you."
Yeah, that was a good season.
That was funny. Reason. Anyway, back to the situation. Like,
would you apply to be the next Bachelor?
Of course, I would. No, like that's insane.
But what strikes me is this guy says he's applied to be on Amazing Race, Survivor, and a million other reality shows. What? I'm just curious because I've never met a person who has so much desired to be so desperately on a reality show.
I could see some of them have more an appeal to me, like The Amazing Race. I think we know someone who applied to be on The Amazing Race. I think it was
there's been YouTubers on Amazing Race. But it sounds like this person doesn't have an interest on one particular show. He just like wants to be on any reality show.
But in a way, like getting on a reality show is one pretty easy path to becoming a sort of micro-influencer. Because you notice the people who got on these shows, often end up with like these kind of...
sponsorships on Facebook and Instagram. I see it. Yeah.
So if you... Look, if he agreed with his girlfriend that he was applying to all these things very cynically, just as a way to maybe make some money by getting some internet fame, then that's actually totally... okay in the context of the relationship, even if I sort of question your values and ethics of wanting to do that.
Right.
Like you want to be like the person who has a girlfriend back at home on The Bachelor, who's just there to maybe get famous.
They're going to find out. They're literally going to look.
This has happened even,
This
right?
has happened, yeah.
Yeah, so clearly there are people who just apply to be on the show just to be on TV. Yeah.
So maybe they agreed, and maybe his life's mission is to be on a reality show, but
they didn't agree.
She's clearly, well, no, maybe they agreed on other reality shows that he's applied to in the past, but it's clear she was not happy about him applying on The Bachelor, and he doesn't see why that's a problem. Oh, it's not a problem. I'm going to date all these other women. Like,
Any of the relationship themed reality shows, to me, you'd have to be insane to go on them. No one comes out of those looking good, right?
you don't want to go on Temptation Island.
Temptation.
Ben?
Yeah, what we at night we just like we're on our phones in bed. We'll like throw on like television just in the background, and we watched Temptation Island the other day. That show is insane.
It's so good, though.
So like they send 4 couples to an island, and they bring a bunch of single people to mingle with them. They split up the couples, so all the girls are just now in a villa with a bunch of guys who are trying to sleep with them, and vice versa, right? And it's like, who in a relationship they actually value in any meaningful way puts themselves in that situation?
Well, you got to prove your love by not cheating.
Oh,
It's like entrapment.
The host
Like, this
is
should
such
be
a
illegal.
weirdo creep too.
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg.
Mark
the
L. Wahlberg.
Dollar store Mark Wahlberg.
I would be upset too if I were her and Ben applied to be on The Bachelor and I didn't previously discuss this. I'd be like, what are you looking for? The love is right here. Look in front of you. Give me the final rose.
What a weird spin on it too, that he's basically admitting too that like it's like a 1 in a million opportunity. But if it came along, like I would totally entertain the possibility of finding love on it, and I would want the same thing for her to have a better life.
Yeah, no, you're right. Let's not ignore that part because
That's
that was
super
pretty
bizarre,
messed up.
right?
And she deserves the best life possible, better than the one I could ever give her. Like, what?
What a strange relationship these people must have.
What an asshole.
Yeah.
All right, Menchie.
All right, little Menchie, what do you think?
She fell asleep. Menchie, who's the asshole? Is it your brother?
All right, apologies to Rosanna Pansino. We were going to have her on to talk about Baketopia, but we ran out of time.
Okay,
But we'll
Ben.
see you next Taco Tuesday.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Happy Taco Tuesday. Have a good St. Patrick's Day.
No one cares.
No one
That's it.
cares. Yes. I wore my green Ben shirt. Ben, just to celebrate.
Yeah, I write my name on Christine's clothes so she doesn't forget who owns them.
Yes, it's yours. You sewed that there.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching.
We'll see y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.